My name is John Passfield. I'm going to read from my novel, John Passfield, Saturday Morning. The title of this reading will be Saturday Morning, Video 13, Deepening Imagery. Here's the novel, John Passfield, Saturday Morning, a novel by John Passfield. The one in the John Passfield in large print is the main character, 21-year-old me. The one in smaller print is the author, 75-year-old me. And that's my wife and I sitting on our little sports car, an Austin Haley Sprite, 1960 Austin Haley Sprite, in the summer of 1967. Here's the summary. 21-year-old would-be writer John Passfield spends the last few months as a garbage collector on the streets of his hometown, St. Thomas, Ontario, Canada, in the summer of Canada's centennial year, 1967. As he works, he compares the imagery of his life so far and of his upcoming marriage and pending career as a high school teacher to the imagery of the great books that he is reading, all while in pursuit of building the perfect load of garbage. So what I want to talk about today is one category of imagery that I use in my novels. Anthems are verses of 5 stanzas with no rhyme scheme and of varying numbers of words and line lengths, which are interlayered among the thoughts of the main character of the novel. Like dreams and nightmares, they do not draw on the topics of the surface life of the main character, which would be young man collecting garbage, about to become a high school teacher, about to get married, and so on. They don't draw on the surface life, as I said. They draw on and comment on deeper levels of thought in the mind. So just like dreams and nightmares, you dream of topics that have nothing to do with the surface of your life, your everyday life, and yet they're commenting on your everyday life. That's how dreams and nightmares work. There are 13 anthems in the novel. In order to keep this reading to a reasonable length, I'll read 6 anthems. So the first one I titled A Moth Will Be Born, and it's on page 4. So I'll just find the first verse here. Now these are spread throughout the novel, and there's a reason for that. The verses are spread throughout the novel because these images deepen and comment on the other imagery of life. So most of the novel is imagery drawn from the life experience of the main character, university student, recent graduate, about to be married, about to have a professional job teaching, finishing up a summer job on the garbage, and so on. So all those thoughts take up many pages, but these little deepening images are spread throughout those thoughts and comment on them. So here's the first one, page 4. A moth will be born inside a building. What does that have to do with his life? Page 12. So we're going from page 4 to page 12, which is a lot of imagery about his everyday life. And then we get another comment which somehow suggests a theme, a concept that will deepen those thoughts if he can figure out how. Say a dusty old shed that has not been used for years. Okay, that's page 12. Page 22, after about 10 more pages of everyday thinking about everyday life, and it will flutter at a window, aware of the grass and the flowers. So moth born in a shed, looking out the window, aware of the grass and the flowers. Then we go to page 31. The windowsill will be covered with the bodies of the moths of many years. So all these moths born in an old shed, who look out the window at the grass and flowers, but never get out there, never experience the grass and flowers as actual things. They die on the windowsill. And then only one more verse, page 40. Here we go. And the newborn moth will be fluttering out its life, aware only by instinct, purely by instinct, of the flowers and the grass and the trees. So, will the moth ever get out through the window? Or maybe someone will open a door in the old shed and it can get out. Or will it spend its whole life looking through the glass at the grass and the flowers and the trees? And then how does it know that it wants to be out there with the grass and the flowers and the trees? Well, pure instinct, we have instincts to do certain things with our lives. Sometimes we get to do those things and sometimes we don't, but we certainly feel we know what we want to do with our lives. Well, that's that. The anthems don't explain themselves. They simply sit there as imagery, interacting with the other imagery, but all imagery needs to be interpreted. Imagery doesn't explain itself. It just sits there waiting to be interpreted as best we may. How many words can be found? This starts on page 48. This is another one. 5 verses sprinkled throughout the thoughts of the main character. How many words can be found in a barrel of ink? Well, just a question. From 48 to 58, that's 10 pages of thoughts about his life. And then another increment, another verse. None, said the pessimist. About 10 pages further, 67. All, said the optimist. So how many words are there in a barrel of ink? None, said the pessimist. All, said the optimist. Well, let's move on. 76. The jury deliberated for about a week. And then 84. That was the year the jury awarded a double prize. So the optimist said all words can be found in a barrel of ink. The pessimist said no words can be found in a barrel of ink. And both answers were thought to be worthy of a prize. Both had some truth in them, I guess. And that's it. Well, here's a young man who wants to be a writer. What does a barrel of ink have to do with a young man who wants to be a writer? And what's in the barrel of ink? And maybe how to get it out of there and put it on a page. Let's go on. He was the first to tell a story. Page 4950. So I'll go back and pick that one up. Again, sprinkled throughout thoughts of the past, the present, and the potential future. He was the first to tell a story around a campfire. Then we go to 59, which is 9 pages later. So they're all about 10 pages apart. He told a fib that would last for thousands of years. 68. He yielded to the urge to tell a tall story. And then 77. He knew that time had gone forward as the sun rose and set. And then 85, while his life had gone sideways through the day. Well, anthems are deepening imagery. Deepening imagery does not explain itself. Deepening imagery offers the opportunity for one to examine and interpret the significance of the events of one's own life. So I'll just leave that one at that. The man's beloved had sailed back to 53, 54. The man's beloved had sailed to sea in a ship which was slowly approaching the shore. Well, that's verse 1. To page 63, number of pages later of imagery in the mind, we get this. The ship is the most important element in the voyage, thought the man on shore, and the ship began to sink. Then we go to 72, another 10 pages or so of imagery, which I'm leaving out, which you would read if you're reading the novel. The ship is the most important element in the voyage, thought the man on shore, and the ship began to sink. So the least important element, the ship sinks. Most important element. Page 81. The ship is the most and the least important element in the voyage, thought the man on shore. And lastly, page 90. And the ship sailed safely to the shore. So the need for balance, somehow need to sort of take the elements of one's life and get them in some kind of pattern, some kind of perspective, some kind of balance, If you overemphasize one or underemphasize another, that could cause your ship to sink. And if you get them just right, hey, the ship sails safely into shore. Another one, the kettle drum is sitting idle. This will be page 98. This comes late in the novel. Again, 5 verses, all separated by roughly 10 pages of imagery. The kettle drum is sitting idle. Page 107. The fiddle lies beside the bow. 117, obviously 10 pages later, with lots of imagery not being read at the moment. The baton is on the lectern. 125. The score has not received one drop of ink. And then 135, the last verse in this particular anthem, you are an orchestra of one. So just a thought to deepen the surface thoughts that he's having. The last one I'll read is the little boy stood in the doorway, and these all come, this is only 4 verses, and these all come in the last chapter, so they're fairly close together, unlike the others, which are spread out throughout the novel being one large 50,000 word thought in the mind of the main character. The little boy stood in the doorway. He couldn't wait to tell his mom. Whoops, let me find the other page here. Oh yeah, 142. Okay, little boy stood in the doorway. He couldn't wait to tell his mom, third verse, that he had discovered something he hadn't known before, that he could be inside and outside at the same time. So a little boy stood in the doorway. He couldn't wait to tell his mom that he had discovered something he hadn't known before, that he could be inside and outside at the same time. Well, that speaks of balance. It speaks of perspective. If you're thinking of your whole life and the significance it's had so far, if you're 21, the significance it might have if you get to live to 81, 91, 101, can you stand inside and outside at the same time and look both ways and kind of get some balance there? So those are the ones I'm going to read. Here's a note that I wrote with anthems in mind. I realized as I was reading my first novel, and here it is here, Grave Song, The Agony of Robert Chisholm, a novel by John Passfield. That's the old St. Thomas Church in St. Thomas, Ontario, Canada, built in 1824, where I worked in the summers, as did my brother, for our Uncle Claude, who was the sexton there, and he went on vacation, and we'd work there. But anyway, I realized I was writing my first novel, Grave Song, that I was working on 2 projects simultaneously. Number 1, I was writing my first novel, fine, and number 2, I was inventing my own form of the novel, the John Passfield poetic novel. As I was writing my 15th novel, here it is here, Pompeii, Vesuvius Dominus, a verse popped into my head and I wondered what it was. I decided it was 2 things. Number 1, it was a verse, whether remembered by the main character or created by the main character, that was being employed as deepening imagery by which to evaluate the experiences of his life, as a measuring stick by which to consider, by comparison and contrast, what he had done in his life and how well he had responded to the things that had been done or happened to him. Accordingly, in all subsequent novels of mine, the anthems are placed amid the memories of the experiences of the main characters. That the mind thinks in a category of imagery that I have labeled anthems is not something that I know. What I do know, though, is that the mind compares and contrasts imagery from our experiences and from our fantasies, such as are presented in our dreams and our nightmares. So in the novel, the anthems work in the mind as dreams and nightmares do. To me, a novel is an attempt to create a literary equivalent of the process by which we human beings evaluate our lives. To put it bluntly, the anthems are there to help the main character to think. So, the novel is John Passfield, Saturday Morning, a novel by John Passfield. It's found on Amazon if you want to have a look. My publisher's website is rocksmillspress.com, RRCKSMILLSPRESS.com. More information there. My website, johnpassfield.ca, all one word, has more information in the form of 2 free books. Planning Notebook, in which I plan and write the novel. A journal in which I reflect on the rough draft which I'm polishing. And that includes all kinds of topics about the type of novel that I've developed. And lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.